Welcome to
MIA2K,
your ticket from Miami to Seoul.
We're Kathy and Laura, and we're so happy you could join us today.
You probably know us from, just kidding, you don't know us yet. We're just two Miami girls with obsessive fandom tendencies who fell into the inescapable void of Korean entertainment. And we're here to share our insights and spill all the tea only grown fans like us can enjoy.
We've done all the research and acclimating so you don't have to. Before we begin, please make sure you're following us wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And if you love visuals like us, you can watch us on our YouTube channel. We drop episodes with our hot and sunny takes every week. Hi, guys. We just want to start by saying thank you so much for listening to us and tuning in each week. We're really excited to continue growing and hopefully you continue listening. Today's episode is super important. We're really excited to talk about it. We're going to be talking today about our biases because, yes, it's plural. We're also going to be talking about some of the basic terms, K-pop terms, and hopefully you'll get to know us a little bit better as we share who our biases are.
Totally. So from the beginning of our ideation of this podcast, Laura and I wanted to intertwine cultural and educational components in with the pop culture and the tea and the current events. So this is a really important episode for us to start doing that. And that's why we're going to mix in those terms and you'll have so much fun. You won't even notice. We promise.
You won't.
So we're going to start, as I mentioned, intertwining some terms into the fun here. So let's start with some vocabulary. We are going to talk to you guys today about our biases and bias wreckers. For the definition of the bias, just think of back in the day when Backstreet Boys or NSYNC were a really big deal and you really liked them a lot, but there was one member that you liked over the rest of them. That's your bias. My bias back in the day for Backstreet Boys was Nick because he was the youngest and I think he appealed the most to me at the time when I was a tween. And then once I grew up, I moved on to Brian because goals. So because you bias that, you're biased towards that person, that is your bias. And then the bias wrecker is usually if there's like a second or third or fourth or however many you have in the group that you also like them and they kind of wow you with a picture or a video, or there's a moment where you're really like, ooh, and it kind of makes you forget about your bias a little bit. That's your bias record. It completely wrecked your bias right then and there.
Mm-hmm. There's also ULTS, which is basically ultimate bias, which means you will probably drop everybody else for that one person. We both have one and we drop anybody and everybody for them.
Yep.
Also, we are proudly multi-stans, which means that we like a lot of groups and we keep up with a lot of groups. The reason why we're bringing that up is that apparently not a lot of people are multi-stans. The people that we've talked to, they just kind of give us like a, oh, really? Because like for them, it's a little bit hard to fathom the amount of time and effort that it takes to follow more than one group, and also money, and mostly money and time. So
yeah, I was really kind of taken aback by all the people that were looking at us weird when we talked about how we were going to multiple concerts and things like that, because to me it just comes so natural, I guess, from our friendship and our obsessive tendencies. But to everyone else that is more loyal, props to you, but you're missing out.
We are not those bitches.
Not them. Not us.
Never us
at all.
Since we're finally getting a chance to do some K-pop / Korean culture 101, we also want to review some terms that you hear a lot when you watch like K-pop content.
And just please keep in mind that we are not native Korean speakers, not native or not regular. Like we are really getting our feet just barely wet into the Korean vocabulary. And I saw this TikTok the other day from this creator called Max Not Beer. I think he studied Korean in college and he's lived in Korea and he worked at a children's daycare. So he speaks the language and a lot of people have asked him to correct their Korean. And he said, I'm a guest in this house and you should follow Korean creators and native Korean speakers and ask them for feedback. So that's very that energy that we want to convey here.
Yeah.
We are guests in this house. We're really appreciative of the Korean culture. And
Yeah.
so we are sharing our experience with you, but please just forgive any mispronunciations. There will be a lot of them throughout this episode.
Way too many. So my first taste of some of these words were I started watching dramas before I got into K-pop and everything. And these are words that, you know, Koreans use in their day-to-day life. So I would hear some of these words a lot. And so, you know, I started Googling and like trying to figure out what they meant and like the significance of them, because sometimes there's like the definition and then the appropriate time to use it depending on the situation. So one of the first words that I learned was young, which is basically from a younger guy to an older guy. And it just means big brother, but it's like a sign of respect when you're really close. Like a guy that just met an older guy wouldn't just call him young. It would be somebody that they have a relationship with, a close relationship with. And it's just a way of, I guess, showing respect in a caring and loving manner, I would say.
Yeah. And it's also for, in the case of K-pop groups, or when there's a big group of friends, I guess the oldest person in the group is also kind of known as the hyung. So with that one, we'll jump to the other term, which I don't know how to pronounce very well. So please forgive me, Korea and everyone else. The younger people in general are called dongsangs, I think that's how you pronounce it, or something like that. And they're also less experienced typically and just lower on the food chain than you are.
So the counterpart to hyung would be ani, and that would be from a younger woman to an older woman. And that just means older sister. Again, you have to have some sort of close relationship to use these words. There's just, you're not just going to show up, meet somebody and be like, ani, like, no.
Get to TSA.
No.
Ani.
No. But yeah, so that's like the counterpart.
Yeah. And I'll go into, again, for more of the K-pop, but in general, it can be used also at work. The word sambe, it's someone who is a senior to you. So it's someone you look up to, and that it could be a mentor or something like that. And you'll probably hear a lot of idols say the word sambe nim, which I'll explain the nim later, but it's a way to add extra respect to the word and just make it more of an endearing term.
And then lastly, the one that you'll hear a lot is maknae, and that just means the youngest member in the group. There's no gender to it, so it's used in boy and girl groups. And yeah, that's usually just the youngest member.
They can also use it to describe a group of younger people within a group. But in general terms, when idols introduce themselves on stages, the maknae tends to say, I'm the maknae of the group. Like that's his position. So you'll hear that as for mostly just one person. And then like earlier, I mentioned sambe. When there's a sambe referring to a younger person, they call them a hube or hubenim, as I mentioned with the nim before. So nim, from my very limited understanding, could be like a Mr. or Mrs. and it's added at the end of the term. It's not just for sambe or hube. It's added for boss. It's added for servers, for a lot of different industries. They will get the term or the word itself and add nim at the end. And it just adds a layer of respect on top of an already respectful language. So now that we got some basic terminology out of the way, I think it's time to reveal everything about ourselves and start proudly screaming to the world our biases. I'll start. If you're watching our YouTube video version of our podcast, you'll see Laura and I are both wearing shirts that say, hello, my name is, and mine says, hello, my name is Sugar, because that is my ultimate of all time bias. And Laura is wearing a shirt that says, hello, my name is Jin, even though it kind of looks weird because Jin and his crooked fingers don't know how to write eyes appropriately, but we'll forgive him.
Excuse you, it's the perfect eye. I don't know what you're talking about. It's
sure. So
you should go get your eyes checked or something.
Yeah, I will. Absolutely. So Suga is the reason I exist. He was born
Dramática.
he was born 4 years after me, but for some reason I think that he gave birth to me or something. I don't know. Suga is in BTS. He is a perfect specimen. I at first when I started watching BTS content, I did not care for Mr. Sugar. I was not about that life because he looked like he would rather be getting a prostate check than be at any of their engagements. He is very aloof and very not interested in the press junkets and the day-to-day stuff. So
The video that made Kathy think this was the Tiny Desk concert.
mhm.
That was one of the first things she watched because I sent it to her because I thought it was really great. And that's one of the reasons why she thought Suga hated his life.
I really thought he was being held against his will. I was convinced that he was just hating every second of his existence as an idol. And now that I've watched over, all 8 years worth of content that BTS has available, now I can tell a lot more about his personality. I do know that at the time he was going through really severe chronic pain because of his shoulder. So that was probably hindering his experiences as a whole. But just as a person, he's not extremely energetic to begin with. And because they are in a very poppy era of their music, they were not doing a lot of rap heavy songs. So he was not really singing a lot. So that's also contributed to my image of him. But it only took 10 days and one specific video that told me about his life and background for me to devote my life to him. It was over for me.
Kathy sends me, like, as she's watching this video, she's sending me a message and she's like, Laura, this man has gone through so much. I can't believe it. He's here. Wow.
He has. There's this thing, like, I never considered myself someone to like be rooting for the underdog. Like, I did not know this about myself. But when someone has struggled, I just root for them so hard. And Suga struggled in every way, shape, or form. Like, he was run over while he was doing delivery services in Korea to be able to pay for his school, while he was also training to be an idol. He had appendicitis like the year before that. Again, from the accident of when he got run over, his shoulder was crushed under the wheel of the car. And he worked for 8 years with all this pain that he could barely even carry the mic on his hand because of the pain that he was going through. And isn't that just like dedication? And like, don't you just have so much respect for someone when you hear all that they've gone through? He struggled with anxiety, depression, and now he dedicates his existence to like reading about psychology to help all of us get our shit together. So what's not to love?
I mean, I hadn't even thought about this until Kathy mentioned it, but the Dionysus choreography, the first version of it, the fact that he did it with up shoulder, is a little crazy.
I think about it on a daily basis, actually, because when it comes up on TikTok, I'm like, I can't believe really he did that for so long with an injured shoulder. Also, I didn't declare Suga as my bias because I was still very baby in my K-pop life. Laura took the liberty of telling me, I'm going to say Suga is your bias. And she was right. I have no complaints. Absolutely. I stand by what she said. So she said what she said, and I did what I did. And they say a lot in TikTok that your biases kind of represent a lot of qualities that either you're looking for in a partner or that you're looking to have yourself. And I think Suga encompasses everything that I want to be. And also that the person that I would like to be with is as a partner. So I see both things in him. He is the rapper of the group, and I am a rapper specialist and connoisseur, as you will get to know during this episode. He is among the shorter members of the group, which is also a pattern that I like to follow. He's very sleepy, which is me. Like, anytime he's not working, he's sleeping. And I very much felt seen and I related. He's also extremely introverted, as am I. He is a cat, which I've been called Cat because my name is Kathy. So there's always been like a feline thing there with me. And you'll also see how this pattern comes back repeatedly throughout this episode. And my records for BTS, all of them all 6 of them are my records. Let's put that on record. They have all come from my throat or my thyroid at one point or another in the past year and change that I've been standing them. But mainly at the very beginning, my first record was V. And then I realized that it wasn't good for my mental health to stand him because he is so unpredictable and so hot, and he knows his power, and I cannot deal with that energy. So I decided to take him off my record list. And my official record is Cookie, because Cookie was actually when Laura first started like bombarding me with their content, I saw Cookie smiling, and that was the end for me. So Cookie is steadily my official BTS bias record.
So for me, my bias in BTS is Jin. But actually, the first one that I liked was RM, because he's the leader and he has that like energy that he's just going to tell you what to do. And I hate authority, but apparently I don't.
Spoiler alert, this will also be a very consistent theme throughout this episode.
Yeah. So he was the leader, and he was always, talking because he's a leader. And I just thought he was like really cool. And then I was scrolling through TikTok, and I see this video of, this little clip of Jin in the soup in the first season. It's when he's sitting outside and he's eating a mango. And he's saying how beautiful it is because there's like a little bit of rainfall and it's early morning, and he's being so classy eating his mango. And as he's saying this, he proceeds to choke. And he just pretends it didn't happen. It was iconic. I couldn't not love him from that moment on. Because
Laura sent me a video and she goes, "Oh my God, this is so iconic." And it's just like the 6-second clip of him choking on this mango. And I couldn't understand what Laura was so fixated on. Now I get it. But I remember that moment too. And also Laura was reluctant to claim Jin as her bias for the longest time. She was like, Jin is not my bias. He's just iconic, and RM is my bias. But then she also fell into her own trap.
Yeah, because RM's the leader and I like leaders. So I was like, no way, he's my bias, but he's my bias. It's fine. And then aside from, the mango video, he has a lot of other really, really good qualities. But one of the other things that I found super iconic was the fact that he introduces himself as worldwide handsome. And like when he said that, I was like, of course. Kathy did not agree, but she's come around since then.
I have been consistently wrong 99% of the time about all my first impressions in K-pop. So I have walked back all of my statements.
Kathy was mentioning that like what Suga meant to her. For me, Jin is very much like me. Like if you follow astrology, he's a Sagittarius. I'm a Sagittarius. We're actually only 2 days apart. We won't say who's older. It's me. It's fine. We're only 2 days apart, and he's very much a Sagittarius and I'm very much a Sagittarius. And like, if you start reading about all of that stuff, which I hadn't until we started going into K-pop, and Kathy's like, oh, this person's so this and this person's so that. And I'm like, maybe I should read into this so I know what she's talking about. So I did, and we're very, very similar. We're serious, but also not very serious. We're very, I guess you could say spontaneous. We kind of just do what we want to do, and we don't really care about other people, what other people think. Not other people. We care about other people, but not what other people think. One of the reasons why, or not one of, but a couple of reasons why I love him is because he's very caring of his members. He's the young of the group, so he's the oldest one, and he's always taking care of his members very much. He is also super, super, super dedicated to his job. So he got recruited coming out of a bus because he's worldwide handsome, and like, who wouldn't want to have him in a group because just his face sells. So he got recruited coming out of a bus. He was actually studying to be an actor. So he had never really thought about being a singer or like dancing or anything. So when he joined the group, he was at a little bit of a disadvantage because
a lot of a disadvantage.
Because he didn't really sing, and he had obviously, as an actor you get voice training, but it's very different than the voice training you get as a singer. So he had to basically start from zero, and it's been 11 years and he still struggles with dancing. I love him, but I do not watch any Jin fan cams. Fan cams are basically focused on one member for the whole presentation. And I don't watch them because he doesn't really enjoy dancing. Like I should say, he enjoys silly dancing and dancing from his soul, which isn't very good, which I can relate, but he doesn't like choreography. And you can kind of see that when he's dancing. So his fan cams aren't something that I find very pleasing to watch, because it's more like, why are they making him dance? Like, let him just be beautiful and sing, because now he has a beautiful voice. It is stable, it is delicious, and you should listen to Moon.
May I approach the bench, Your Honor?
Yes.
I know I have no right to speak about Jin, but I would just like to bring my perspective to the mix.
Yes.
I will say that at the very beginning, because of everything that Laura is saying right now, because of his lack of experience with dancing and singing, you can tell that he's not necessarily having the best time on stage while he has to do really complicated choreography, because it's not just any choreography. BTS is known to have some of the hardest choreography in the industry. So at first, just like I fall for the underdog, I really like when people enjoy what they do and when they're excited to do it. So when I would see Jin, I was just like, this is not what he was cut out to do. He should not be here. But time has proven me wrong. And I have watched enough footage to know that without Jin, there would be no BTS. And I would just like to go on record saying that. So I appreciate our worldwide handsome king. I always appreciate his efforts because he puts in more work than any of them do in order to be able to be at their level, which he is unequivocally. And I applaud Laura for having such great taste. That is all.
Thank you. Yeah. So, man, that was beautiful. Thank you.
I felt it. And you know it's true.
That was beautiful.
You know how honest we are with each other when we have these conversations. And
beautiful.
I was not having it with Jin at first. It took a long time for me to come around on him, but I did, and I'm here.
And right now, I think in the group, he is one of the members that has one of the most stable voices. He has really put in the time to be able to sing the way he does. It might not come off as effortless as some of the members, like JK. Like when he sings, it just seems like, he can do that coming like right after waking up, just like it's not a big deal. But his voice is beautiful. And again, please listen to Moon on Spotify, so you know what I'm talking about.
And after listening to Moon, go listen to Super Tuna, because that's just you have to.
Iconic. He's a jokester. He comes with the dad jokes, and I love that. He doesn't really take things, he takes what he needs to take seriously, and he's a very serious person, but at the same time he knows that it's fine. So he's great, and I love him a lot. And Ryan understands, and he can pick him out, which important time. You know what, I'm proud of, because it took me a while to get him to come
around on him.
Yeah, because he was looking at other members before, but I'm like, no.
Ryan, aka Laura's husband, is aligned with me and my biases, is all I'm gonna say.
True. This week he sends me a video that like appeared on his Instagram, like
Reels
feed or whatever, and it was a video of Sugar.
As it should be.
It's true. And then the next video he sends me, it's also BTS, and what I would like to call his bias record, which I want to say it's my current bias record, which is Jimin. Look, if you don't love Jimin, what are you even doing, is what I'm saying. You know what? Jimin is perfect.
If you don't love Jimin, I don't trust you. I have nothing. I don't want to talk to you. I have nothing to say to you. And that's not on that.
It's true. Like, there's a reason why people love him. So many people love him. And like, I get it. He's perfect. And Ryan agrees.
Yeah, clearly. Clearly.
So with our oats out of the way, we should look at our other biases. You will conclude at the end of our presentation that we have great taste and we are very consistent.
I want to add for the people listening, if you watch us on YouTube, I will be adding pictures of all the members that we talk about throughout our conversation. So if you don't have a lot of information on K-pop, or if you want to see what we're talking about, definitely head to our YouTube channel, which you will find through our link tree if you follow us at MIA2K podcast on Instagram.
Yes. We will also have a Spotify playlist in case you want to listen, and it'll include their solos if they have any.
Sure. Okay, moving right on. We're going to Stray Kids, which I would say is our second kind of group right now in terms of activities and music and shows that we watch, content and stuff like that. So my bias in Stray Kids is Changbin. When I started seeing Stray Kids content from Laura, she was completely focused on sending me Hyunjin and Felix pictures because they look like ethereal fairies and otherworldly beings. Absolutely gorgeous humans. So I really didn't have a chance to look at everyone at Stray Kids from an original perspective, starting with that.
Sorry.
So when I started watching their content more consistently, and Laura was like, I'm here only talking about Hyunjin and Felix, but Bangchan is everything. So Bangchan's the leader. And of course, Laura was talking about the leader nonstop because that's what she does. And then so there's Bangchan and Changbin. And when you're getting used to talking about Stray Kids and seeing their content, those names might be a little bit confusing at first, especially when they go by their nicknames, which are Bangchan is Chani and Changbin is Binny. So it can be kind of like a lot. But anyway, so Changbin wasn't really in my radar until he was, because he is a rapper, to no one's surprise. He is short, to no one's surprise. And he was the first one that pointed out to me a lifelong issue that I didn't know that I had outside of K-pop and just general. I have a thing for Leos. And this is what Laura was referring to earlier with my zodiac craziness. If I'm attracted to someone to an extent that even I can't understand why I'm attracted to them, if I just look at this person and I can pick them out of a lineup, they're probably a Leo, and it's a problem and I'm not proud of it. And I would like help, please. Someone, anyone come help me. But anyway, Changbin, Leo, and whatever, that's besides the point. And also he's very thick and delicious, and I love him for that. He's the only one, I think, out of all my biases that doesn't have a cat or feline anything to him. He's called Dweki in the team. He's it's a pig bunny because he's on the chunky in quotes, because Korean chunky is ridiculous. Like Korea, if you're not a size small, you're a freaking walrus, and it's insulting. So because he's a little on the thicker side, which he's absolutely delicious. His arms are everything, and he's still a slim little thing. And I don't know where the bunny side comes from. I actually haven't really looked at this, but they call him Pig Bunny. And I think it's just to not insult him by calling him just a pig. That's my take. And I'm insulted on his behalf.
Yeah, he's great. I have watched a lot of content because Kathy sends it to me. And I have to agree, he's great. He's super talented, super talented. On the other hand, my bias is Hyunjin. And I think he was one of the ones that I was like, yeah, he's my bias. It wasn't like Jin where I was like, no, it's RM. And then like eventually I was like, no, I have to be true to myself. No, I knew from very beginning that I love Hyunjin. And one of the things that is an overarching arc, the fact that a lot of my biases are considered beautiful, and a lot of people at the very beginning kind of throw away all of the other talent that they have and just focus on how beautiful they are. And like, it pisses me off. It pisses them off. So like Hyunjin is one of them. He is beautiful. You have to say, because he is. He is 100% made for the gays and the women. 100%. And one of the reasons why I bias him is because I want to, in a sense, be him. Like, especially when he's on stage. His performances are so, so amazing. He is so confident when he's up on stage, and like everything he does on stage in terms of dancing is beautiful, like beautiful. Like he's one of my biases where I watch his fan cams without stopping. He has this one fan cam where some members from different groups came together to do a cover of a song, and they did Psycho by Red Velvet. And it's a girl group, and it was done by the boys. And with the way he did it, it was a beautiful mixture of like feminine and soft, but also strong and powerful, which a lot of idols don't have. They either go for really strong in their dancing or really, really feminine. A lot of them don't have that like great balance, and he is one of them. And I just want to be him. I have bought so many shoes because this man has worn them. My husband's like, stop. And I'm like, Ryan, I can't. Look at him. So I just want to be him. And one of the things that happened to him last year at the very beginning was he was involved in a bullying scandal. So I was kind of pretty sad for the very beginning of the year because he missed one of the bigger events that Stray Kids did, which was Kingdom. It was basically a competition between idol groups. So because of the bullying scandal, he decided, or maybe JYP decided
I
to
think he was forced.
yeah, to take him out for a couple months because the Korean uh fan base and just the Korean society was not very forgiving. A lot of the claims have been proven wrong, but regardless, he apologized. This was something that happened a long time ago. And as a reformed bully myself, I know that just because you were a terrible human when you're little doesn't mean that you're going to grow up to be a terrible human when you're an adult. And one last thing about him was, so they announced that he was doing or coming back to the group, and we all kind of expected him to take the meek route, try to like blend in a little bit, try to just be very soft in his coming back to the idol community and worldwide or whatever. But you know what, he said, fuck you guys. I am here. And he released one of his better dance solo performance videos. He choreographed it all himself, and it is a work of art. Somebody did a super detailed analysis of it, and oh my God, blew my mind. Ryan has had to watch it a lot of times too, and it's great.
His fan cams are the most watched in current K-pop idoldom because they're just so mesmerizing and powerful.
Mm-hmm.
So he's an incredible performer. He really was born to do this. And he was Artist of the Month last year in October for the Studio Tune compilation. So definitely go watch that one too because it was breathtaking.
Yes, and he is not just a pretty face.
He's not. He's definitely not.
Mm-hmm.
So the next group that we're covering, we're so excited because we are fingers crossed. No more fucking variants to get in the way. We're going to see them next month in concert when they come to Miami.
What?
Drum roll, Monsta X.
Editing Kathy and Laura here. Literally the next day after we recorded this episode, Monsta X announced the postponement of their tour and they won't come until the summer. So super fucking sad face. Back to the podcast.
I'll start for this one. So this is the one group where I have two biases and I cannot decide for the life of me. If you were holding me at gunpoint, I would die because I wouldn't be able to pick one. They both have completely different personalities, completely different traits, completely different everything. And I bias them both equally. My first bias is Kihyun. He was a visual pick for me from day one. Laura, again, trying to ruin me, started showing me pictures of them. And I was just trying to see who was who. I was seeing very aggressive faces that I was not prepared to see at the time. And I was more used to, BTS's ethereal angel cherub little faces. So I was a little taken aback. Again, I was wrong. I love the aggressive faces now. So from the very beginning, Kihyun attracted me. And also, I want to say one of the pictures that I really liked of him, he had his orange hair.
Oh
And
my
that
God.
makes sense because that's just the color for him. So he looks incredible. He has a nickname for it when he has orange hair. He's called Kiranj, and it's freaking perfect. So, anyway, as I started looking into Monsta X and the group and him more, I started realizing why I liked him. And a note here, when you start getting into K-pop and you start seeing groups and there's like a member that calls to you and you don't know why, aside from the fact that they probably could be a Leo, which is not the case for Kihyun, but just me triggering myself over here. There doesn't have to be a reason for you to be attracted to them, but once you start looking into them, you're like, oh, this is why I like them. So once I started looking into Kihyun, I was like, oh, he was born in 93, like Suga. He is actually friends with Suga. He has really like a lot of big dick energy, and he's number one on the shorter side of the group again. And he's also not one of the most popular or biased members. So I really appreciate that confidence in someone who's not super adored. But I will say that confidence in a big part probably comes from his singing. He is incredible. I think out of all of Gen 3, without a doubt, the top two best singers are Baekhyun from EXO and Kihyun. No discussion about it. If you have any other opinions, you're wrong. And period, end of story. So he's a singer who can sing. Like, that man has soul. And if you should just look up Kihyun belting and you will be impressed. So that's one of my biases on Monsta X. The other one is I am creeped in to my life because I was very comfortable with Kihyun. I was fine. I did not need anyone else to come for me, but he did. And he's kind of a broody like rapper, again, to no one's surprise. By broody, I mean like Jon Snow vibes. That's very I am. Like, if you think of Jon Snow in Game of Thrones, just kind of hating his life and, being like the bastard of the family and like not really belonging and loving his brothers and siblings and their siblings loving him, but like he's not happy about anything. That's I am. It's very that energy. So,
oh my God,
I think that's what I liked. I don't know why, but he looked equally uninterested to be there, just like with Suga. So I guess I was like, oh, I guess I have to like you now. He is so hot, ridiculously, insanely hot. And he has the BDE of the century in that group, I think, because he spent so much time because of his dad's job. He spent about 3 or 4 years in the States, and then he also lives in Israel. So he's lived in other societies and he is less conservative. And like the rest of the group has never really lived outside as he has. So he is less afraid to speak up and say things. So he has this incredible confidence about him. And I just love that. So again, he's a rapper. He's short. He definitely is identified with the cat population, and he's introverted. So I don't think there needs to be anything else said about that.
So for me personally, I also didn't start loving my bias in this group. I actually started first liking Juhani because I watched that show with Jackson. Oh yeah, Celebrity Brothers, where they just kind of like hang out or whatever. At that point, I knew Jackson more. So I watched that episode because of Jackson. So I started really liking him from then. And then, I'm scrolling through TikTok. TikTok finally understood that I'm into K-pop. And I started seeing a lot of videos of my bias. My bias is Shonu. I started seeing a lot of videos of him, and it was like, again, they were like, oh my God, he's so hot. And I'm like, ugh, gross. But then I was wrong. He has other very redeeming qualities. He's also the leader of the group. He's tall, so I also have a thing for tall men. So I like leaders and tall men. So
and bullies.
And bullies, because I'm a reformed bully. So, kind of goes.
It goes.
He's part of the tall group within the group. He's the leader. He is built right. He looks good. Um, he is very caring also for his members. He's very humble. Most leaders of groups will introduce themselves as I'm the leader, name of group. But he never really introduces himself as a leader. He's super humble and he's always very caring of his members. And he's kind of dumb, but not really.
I would like to interject here because Laura is too deep to be realistic and objective here. Shonu is one of the most adorably dumb people on the planet. He's, you know how people are like, maybe you're not book smart, but you're street smart. He's neither, but he,
true.
like he himself said, he said, I am a fool, but I'm not a pushover. So
Yes.
there's a lot to his personality where he is not a very eloquent speaker necessarily. He's not someone who's going to have a lot of incredibly introspective thoughts. He's very face value,
Mhm.
and that's okay. And that's fine. And I love that there's that representation too.
Yeah. And I think that's why he's the leader for Monsta X. I think they have Minhyuk to be that vocal person, to be the one that speaks up in interviews and be that extroverted, but they needed someone like Shonu in the back end and behind closed doors. Unfortunately, I'm currently a military lady because he is currently serving. If you have time in your hands, you should watch the videos where they show the members sending him off. It is the saddest, but also the cutest things you will ever
So
watch.
sad. So sad.
And this is one of the only groups where I like all of them. I can't say that about every group.
No.
I love every single one of them. I will be happy with a photo card of any of them. So that's different of Monsta X, and we love them.
I agree and I co-sign.
Also, they make bops. So
They do.
okay, so we talked about BTS, we talked about Stray Kids, Monsta X, and now we are getting into another fourth gen group that we want to talk about that we really enjoy is ATEEZ. They're currently touring the US and they're so talented. We're so sad we're not there.
Wow.
But it's okay.
No, it's
Because
not.
I know, but it's fine. It's okay.
It's not.
But they're really talented and we have no choice but to love them. So for me, my bias in ATEEZ is Mingi. He is, so when I first started learning about ATEEZ, he actually wasn't active. Late 2020, he decided to step back. He needed to take care of himself. He was going through some rough times mentally with his mental health, and he was smart enough and he cares about himself enough to say, guys, I need some time for myself, and he did that. So when we first got into ATEEZ, we got into ATEEZ because of Fireworks, and he's not part of the video, he was part of the recording. But I got into Mingi because we started watching a lot of the content, and he is, again, very good looking, very tall, and he's actually different from the other ones that I mentioned because he's a rapper. He's very involved in producing. He's, writes his own raps, and also he's adorable. So he's super, super extroverted, but really, really awkward. And it is the most endearing thing to watch. So I love it.
I concur. I love him too. I actually should be Mingy biased because of most of the personality traits that he exhibits. The height is not, in my wheelhouse. But I would have made an exception for him. I very much get wrecked by Mingy on a daily basis, so it's fine. He doesn't have to be my bias. I feel like he is sometimes, but it's just one of those things where I'm gonna respect my initial instincts because I know they're there for a reason, and I'm just gonna stick to my guns until I'm proven wrong. And thus far, I have not been proven wrong about mine. My bias, again, from Fireworks era. Let's talk about the fact that Sun and his abs were the ones that brought us into this mess in the first place. So I definitely had a heart attack looking at Sun going, it's like, and like that little move that he did. So that's how ATEEZ we fell into that trap because when we
It's
saw that
true.
they were fourth gen, we were like, we're not sure about this age difference situation. But then we saw them and we're like, okay, I guess we have to go down this rabbit hole too. The first person that sings in the fireworks song is Songhwa. And he starts by saying, I'm the one in my Joan. Because
It's
the
so cute.
the pronunciation of the Z in Korean sounds like a J. They say words like amazing and the Joan and other words like that. And it makes my entire fucking life. So his hair, his styling was so incredible for
Oof.
that era. I have absolutely zero notes for the styling Nunas because they did a great job. His hair
So
was
good.
like, it was like, imagine a widow's peak grown out, like a V bang, which no one could pull that off except him
Nobody.
because he is the visual member of that group. Thank you
Mhm.
very much. Laura and I think switch roles for this group. I like
We
the visual
did.
singer and you like the awkward rapper that is not really like fitting in. So we're very consistent, but AT's kind of fucked it up for us and it's fine.
Yeah.
My bias record, aside from Mingi, I would say is Hongjung. I am obsessed with that man and I had to work very hard for Laura to get into him
So
because I was like,
hard.
Laura, he's a leader, he's a rapper, he's a Kim, because Laura had
Yeah.
complete ownership of every Kim in the idol world. All the guys that she liked were all Kims. And I was like, he's a Kim, he's a leader, he's a very confident short king that looks like he was a bully at some point. You need to stand this man. And I have worked very hard. I think we're getting her there. I think she's very big fan right now.
The thing is, like in Monsta X, I couldn't focus on the other members until Shonu went off to the military. Like, I couldn't focus on him because there's Woo Young, there's San, and there's Mingi. And I'm sorry, but like my brain takes a little bit of time. But
The
now I'm there.
competition is stiff. It's on the
Yeah, but now I'm there and I love him. He's great.
So with Songhwa, he is shy but extroverted at the same time. I think he's just in such a world of chaos because the maknae line of 80s are such
Oh my god.
insane little people like running around. It's like a kindergarten, honestly. So Songhwa doesn't have the time to like get a word in, but he is the young of the group. So
Mhm.
there's a lot of attractive facts to him. And I
Mhm.
think there's like an aura of mystery around him that he doesn't really let you see who he is or what he feels. And I'm just going to call it a day and say that that's probably why I'm into him. And he's just an incredible dancer. He looks incredible on stage as a performer. He also sings really well. So what's not
Mhm.
to like?
It's true. It's true. Yeah.
So guys, we were trying to control ourselves, but clearly we can't. So we're going to end this episode right here. And we're going to finish telling you about our biases next week because we don't want to have you here for 3 hours. And we tried to cut it down.
I mean, as you can tell, we're really excited to share all of this. And we hope that you guys get excited and we hope that you start Googling everybody that we're talking about. And even if you don't share our biases, at least we want you to Google the groups and get into them. Everybody that we've talked about, their music is great. They're very talented. And if you want to be cool, you gotta go and check them out.
What she said. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the MIA2K podcast. We have lots of great content coming up ahead. So please don't forget to follow and subscribe to our show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And if you enjoyed our episodes, please rate us 5 stars.
And for the real-time tea, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook by searching for @MIA2K podcast. Dale, bye.